because I'm going to just make a statement that you can either have the conversation with your kids now, because the last person you want to have a conversation with is me, because I never want you to join my club. So let's just be real. Your kids know a lot more than you even want to believe that they know. And I understand as a parent that place that you could be in. Let's let go of that and let's just educate them as best as we can and keep an open dialogue, because that's what we have to do in this day and age. You remind them to brush their teeth, wash their hands, have the conversation, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen in their lives. Whether the chance to try something, they need to be empowered with education and good coping skills. So that's my rant for this morning, but I feel very passionate about that because I think that too many parents say, my child's too young. Oh, they don't need to know that yet. If I talk about it, it's going to intrigue them more. Furthest myths that we need to really keep dispelling.
Yeah, I just having this conversation 2 days ago with some parents from my son's school. We were at Splish Splash.
And your son is 8.5?
My son is 9.
Okay, 9.
And the parents that I was talking to had a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old. And so they said, oh, you know, what do you do? What do you do for a living? And I started talking about, you know, that I work in a school and I do prevention and intervention. And the parents said, do you think it's time for us to have that conversation with our daughter? And I said, I think we're late at 11, because it's a conversation that has to happen more than one time.
Yeah.
Right? It's a continuous, multiple conversation, because we can't possibly provide them with all the information they need in one time sitting down, and they're not going to remember it if you only say it once and that's it. You know, you got to reinforce it. The same way we reinforce, wash your hands, wash your hands. My son's 9. I tell him, did you wash your hands? Did you flush the toilet?
Did you brush your teeth?
Did you brush your teeth? Every day. It's an everyday conversation.
Yes.
And substance use and talking about prevention and strategy should be an everyday conversation.
And it doesn't, again, have to do with substance abuse. Making healthy choices and coping skills. If you see that they struggle with making healthy choices, and or, you know, they're that one that could be the risk taker, or, you know, you each know your kids, you know, and you have to equip them, you have to meet them where they are at a constant, everyday basis.
And that's such an important thing you say, because each one of your kids is different.
Yes.
And they're gonna need different strategies to address this.
Yes.
And the cornerstone to that, and the cornerstone of prevention, is communication, right?
Yes.
Effective, consistent.
And a healthy family policy and boundaries that you've set out long before they're 11, they're 9. You know, what does our family believe in?
What's our values?
What's our values, right?
Well, that's the problem that happens. A lot of times people don't look to address it until there's a problem, and then it's too late. And then sometimes they don't know as individuals how they feel or how they feel as a family unit. So if me or my spouse or my partner, if the family dynamic, if we're not on the same page, it's going to be really hard to set a clean, clear message.
And let's, you know, be real. Let's be real. Kids find that little weakness.
They do.
And they drive a bulldozer right through that crack between, you know, mom and dad.
Well, the conversation comes up in the car, and then I'm just going to say Dad says, well, I don't really care about drinking, but I don't want you doing those hard drugs.
Right.
And it happens right in the middle, and then because there was no discussion between the parents ahead of time saying, what is your value about drinking? Why is it 20? Do you support 21, the legal age? And that's a conversation parents have to have well before they have those conversations with their kids. Or else it happens like that. Now the kid realizes, oh, Dad don't really care.
Right. Right. And if drinking is okay.
Right. And it's not that the kid's like, oh, I'm going to take advantage of this. Their brain is not developed enough to really understand this whole process. That part of that brain is not developed until they're 25.
Right. Right.
So they're just doing what's natural and impulsive. They hear that. They hear, I don't care about drinking. Right. And then they start drinking. It's the same families that collect the keys when the kid, I'm going to have them drink at my house so it's safer. And then the kid just hears, my mom allows me to drink.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You gave me a
If I can drink here, I can drink anywhere.
I can drink anywhere.
Right.
Right. And let's dispel the myth of, well, they're going to go to college, they're going to drink anyway. So let's get them prepared.
I mean, personally, it's not about preparation. It's about, sometimes you just need to have a hard stop, which is, it's not legal to drink until you're 21.
Right.
Okay, and these are the reasons why 21 is the age limit. If you make them understand that it's not a control factor, it's not me, the parent, trying to control your behavior, it's this is the law and this is why. If you can link it to the science behind it about the development of the brain and the impact of alcohol, maybe they'd understand a little more. They may listen, they may not, but at least they know that you're not okay with it, so maybe they'll think a little harder before they do it.
That's really a good point, because I think kids never want to disappoint mom and dad. They really don't, at any age. They want their boundaries a little bit bigger because they're pulling away and developing, right? But they never really want to disappoint you.
Normal risk-taking behavior is normal to adolescent development, right? If we have to be their consequential thinking mechanism, if we have to be the thing that in their head, that voice that says, don't come home like this. If you do, I'm going to catch you. You're in trouble.
Right.
If that slows them down enough to make a better decision, then so be it. Because we know that their friends and their peers, which is the other group that they're attached to, are probably involved. If they're doing that, they're probably involved with it as well. So they're saying, come on, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. So they need another voice in their head.
They do.
They have the voice that says, let's do it.
That voice is always loud and clear. I even remember growing up, if I do this and I get caught, my father's going to kill me.
Right.
All right, let's come up with a different plan. You know, and you always went to a lesser craziness.
That becomes the brakes.
That becomes the conscience in your mind.
And that's what they need, because there's no consequential thinking mechanism that's really developed, or it's developing at that moment.
Right.
So there needs to be other barriers in the way to slow things down. And in this day and age, with all the stimulus and everything, they're being stimulated, and they're receiving so many messages. Where is the stop?
Yeah.
If so, I think that's the parent's responsibility.
It is the parent.
And that's why when you hear some parents saying, like, my kids, telling me I'm a terrible parent and everything, and then you hear parents say, well, that's the sign that you're doing a good job as a parent. It's true, because they're trying to go and we're trying to slow them down, and it's terrible. I don't want to be a parent and be in that situation, but that's just part of the job.
They're supposed to hate you at some point in time.
It's part of the job.
It's part of the job. And it requires difficult conversations.
That's right.
And sometimes, they're not easy. My daughter's 13, she's going to high school. It's tough.
Right, but are you not going to prepare her for you already know what her challenges will be?
Absolutely. We have open conversations all the time. It's kind of, for me, if you approach it with a non-judgment attitude and you give them the power to be free with their conversation, and then make your parental adjustments around that and explain to them why you're doing it. Okay? Right. Because for me, trust needs to be earned. It's not given.
Correct.
And there's a lot of push and pull, and it's tough, because you're not only competing with your 13-year-old who's kind of like, I think I'm 20 and I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. You're competing with what everybody else is doing and how that fits into the equation. And
that line never worked with my parents.
I know. It doesn't work in my house either.
Yeah, that was a scary line. You only maybe used it once, because if you tried to say it twice, you were really in trouble.
And just to add, you said trust is earned, and I also say trust but verify. Is another statement that I say. Like, we can trust them to the things we do, but we still got to verify, check up, follow up. That's our job as parents, to monitor them, right? When they were kids, we said, okay, we trust them to walk around. Then we put a gate up here, and we said we put a little stopper on this door because we don't want them in that room, and we don't want them in that cabinet, and we don't want them here.
Right.
So that's like, we're putting boundaries up. So you got to verify. You got to check the area, right? When I let my kid, loose when he was 2.5, I made sure there was no sharp objects. I put everything. It's no different.
Yeah,
exactly.
Except the boundaries are kind of like invisible, so we really have to do a better job at monitoring things.
So a strategy for this summer would be, if your child says he's going to John's house,
right?
You better make sure John's parents know he's going to be there.
Follow up.
Right.
Make
all
a
of
call.
those things. And parents are very lax on doing that, which I'm a little surprised with.
It's almost like a lot of parents feel like they don't want to get harassed by their kid to do that.
Right.
So they're dictated almost by, that's what I hear a lot.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, they have They have their own, like, use their own technology against them. They can FaceTime to show you that they're at John's house. Right? They want to FaceTime you for everything else. What? Oh, FaceTime me.
FaceTime me.
FaceTime me. And then show me what's going on. Show me all your friends around the thing.
Show me John's mom.
Show me John's mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to say hello to you. I mean,
Yeah.
we have this technology now that they use for their advantage.
That's an excellent
Use
point
it
that
for
you
your own
made. Yep.
advantage.
Yeah.
You know, we also have rules that when I call, you pick up.
Yeah.
There is no, I'm not picking up the phone, right?
Right.
That's why you have it, so I can get in touch
Don't
with
text.
you. Don't text.
Right.
My other red light is if you tell me that you're going somewhere and I say I want to talk to the parent and you start giving me a hard time about it, I already know that it's not okay. You've
Right.
already made the decision for me.
Yeah.
So those are kind of things that you need to look for. As a
Yes.
parent, we have this thing called intuition. And sometimes as a parent, it's like we almost ignore it because
Yeah.
we feel bad about it. But that's
Well,
it's-
because we don't want your kid to be hurt. You don't want them to feel upset. And the biggest key there is, I'm going to work. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I'm all on board. So this is no criticism or judgment. It's, you know what you have to get done. And do I need to engage at 8 o'clock in the morning in this conversation? You know, and get yelled at and start my day this way. Yeah, well, then have it the night before
right.
and figure out, you know, where they're going to be. Because if you don't figure out where they're going to be, they're going to find their own places to be.
It's also teaching them responsibility.
Yes.
That's the other piece.
gonna say
You know, kids are into instant gratification. They are like, I want to go to the beach now. Or I
Right.
want to go to this person's now. You need to drive me here. It's teaching them that life doesn't really work like that, and asking them to have responsibility and do a little bit more due diligence before they want to do things. It's teaching mutual respect also.
And then you go into that plan, so you talked about it, teaches them some responsibility. It's also teaching them how to plan.
Yes.
And when you plan something, then there's less likely that things go wrong. And sometimes kids find themselves in situations like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And now they're like hanging around people and like they're smoking weed and they're like have never been exposed to that and like, how did I end up here?
Yeah.
Some planning, which we can just require. What's your plan? When are you going to be there? Who's going to be there? What time are you getting there? What time are you going to leave? How are you going to get there? How are you going to get home? What happens if this happens? If you start questioning your kid and they start answering that, we're teaching their brain how to be organized when they think about something.
And it's
a
very
healthy
important.
coping skill.
It's a very healthy coping skill. On Sunday nights, even to this day, even when since my kids were little and going to work, Sunday night, I look at my plan for the week. I have all my things ready for Monday morning. Where does everyone need to be? So Sunday, as you wind down your weekend, what do you want to do this week? We need to come up, what is our plan?
Right.
Where are you going to be? What do you want to do? If it's not on the schedule, you're not doing it. And that's a consequence for not asking ahead of time. So you're right, get them moving in that direction always.
It also opens the conversation for like what Anthony said about, well, what happens if you get somewhere and you don't feel safe? What are you going to do? Right? Like
Perfect.
Yeah.
When the plan doesn't happen.
When the plan doesn't happen. And it makes them think outside the box because kids have no foresight.
Right.
Right? We're invincible. We can do whatever we want. You know, Joe says he's going to be there. It's only going to be Joe. That's just how we think. They live in the moment. So
Right.
it teaches them to try to pre-plan about in the event something bad happens, in the event I'm uncomfortable, this is what we're going to do.
But that should just also, I think, you know, while we're talking about this, be part of the plan and a strategy with the parent. Hey, you know what? This is I'm glad that you set this up, but if you feel uncomfortable, I need you to text me a certain code, a word, or whatever, and I know I need to come and rescue you. And that's okay. Text me that, I will find a way to get you.
That's right.
You know, and that's so important for kids not to think they're going to get into trouble. Yes, it's going to be an inconvenience if you're at work.
Right.
It always is. However, that's part of the job too. But what's more important?
Right.
More important.
So you get
Remind
that,
yourself.
you know,
Your child's safety is
Yes.
paramount to anything.
without a doubt. Without a doubt.
I also, just to rewind back, you started the conversation with, there was a myth that you said about parents worried talking about to their kids about something that they don't know about yet. And I had that conversation, I've had this conversation a lot with parents, and I say, Well, what's the alternative? Your kid doesn't know about marijuana, so you don't say anything. Instead, they learn from their friends or from the internet or some sort of social media app, and they read something that says it's completely harmless. It doesn't affect the brain. It's
They're
not
legalizing
addictive.
it.
That's right. It's not addictive. So now they just got that information, and nobody else is providing them information that they respect. So parents and schools have that obligation to provide them with the other side of that, the fair side of that, right? And I just pick on marijuana because of this landscape that we're in right now with legalization and medical and who's, it's going to help who. And watch these videos about some guy who's, smokes some marijuana, and now he's relaxed, first time his Parkinson's has stopped. And so these kids see this stuff and they're getting a message like, this is going to heal me. This is going to help me. And they're not even sick. It's going to help me.
It's going to help me.
Because it's just the messaging. So I think it's important for parents to have that first conversation because that's what's going to stick in their mind and have some of that information and be realistic about it.
I mean, I have the conversation about marijuana and I talk about edibles because I say, do you know what edibles look like? Do you know that they look like candy? Don't take
cookies,
cupcakes, because that's another thing.
Gummy bears.
Yeah,
sometimes you go into high school, you're a freshman, you get exposed to older kids.
Absolutely.
And
they may think it's funny.
They may think it's funny
to slip you something that,
and you may take something and not know it. So for me, it's really important to talk about all the different types of marijuana. Even vaping. Vaping is a huge.
So vaping is those pens. They look like a pen, right? And it's in place of cigarette.
They look like
smoking.
a bunch of things.
Like some of them are really big, and now all of a sudden the slim. So now here's the technology changing now, and so now you might think you know what it is, and that's why you got to stay up on it. Now I had this kid come into school, and the thing was about this big, and it was about this thin. And it was like, oh, what's that? It's a new vape pen, and it's charged. It doesn't have the big charger battery pack on it anymore. It's to be more concealing with it. $65 online, with a plug charger. I had to learn about it. I went right online right now. I typed in the description and I found out about it. But that's it. Technology's ever changing.
Yeah.
But back to your vaping. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But for me, it's important because a lot of the kids they compartmentalize vaping and they say, okay, I'm gonna vape. It's not terrible for me.
And it's just cherry flavored oil.
It's just cherry flavored oil or water.
Right.
Sometimes they actually think it's water.
It's water.
And that could be marijuana in there. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Well, then just vaping alone, it's aerosol. It's not water.
It's
so
aluminum.
That's a misconception that's been sold tremendously on plenty of websites. It's actually aerosol.
What is the effect of the aerosol on the brain from vaping?
So they don't know the long-term effects of anything that's going on. It's not regulated by any organization. So what they're finding out is independent studies is sometimes they test the liquid and what it says on the label is not really what's in there, and there are things in there that aren't on the label.
Okay.
Right? We don't know what the heavy metals from the coil that are heating up and what that's doing to the body. So they haven't researched this yet. So it's already been marketed as safe.
Right, of course.
It's not research. And then let's not forget, what it's really teaching a kid to do is a creative way to how to inhale things. So if I inhale the vape, what's the difference from a cigarette or a joint?
Right.
It does not matter at that point in time. I'm teaching you a route of admission. The route of admission is an inhalation. Right? I inhale. So now what's the difference what I inhale?
So, for parents, if you're not okay with secondhand smoke, and we all try to keep our kids safe from all of these things, why would you be okay with that? These are the health policies always that you have to be up on,
Right.
It's crazy.
How that backdoored in there, just as smoking in youth started decreasing on a year-to-year basis, it's so interesting that vaping became popular and how, I'm a believer in that, how that's being marketed to kids.
Of course.
And how it's just a backdoor way. So like the public health model worked with smoking, so now we're going to come up with vaping. Hopefully it doesn't take us 20 years to come up with that public health model to show that it's doing damage and that our research can go faster.
And so just a little disclaimer for parents, that's how they buy it. They go on the internet with those wonderful gift cards that family and friends buy, and it is a great idea so that kids can get what they want. Well, you know what? Better to spend the time with the person you're buying a gift for and bring them
Great
to,
point.
to get a gift
Absolutely.
instead of allowing that to happen. Because while you're at work, things may also be delivered to your house or to a house that allows things to come to. So, you know,
Yep.
these are all backdoor ways that kids are getting.
It's true. There's another, what is that video game that you have to keep a credit card on?
You're talking about like PlayStation Live or
Xbox.
Xbox, any one of the online gaming, and they can order.
They can order through.
through their Xboxes. So, as a matter of fact, many of my middle school kids.
So middle school, 6th grade to eighth grade?
Sixth to
To
eighth
eighth
grade. When I
grade.
say middle school, I'm thinking 10, 11 to like 14 are big into playing Xbox Live. From through a bunch of different focus groups and interviewing some of these kids. First of all, many of their discussion about what they're going to do on Friday and Saturday night happen on Xbox Live because they have the little microphones. And
It's like a
then they can-
cyberspace for kids.
And then that Xbox.
So they're
is
in
a
their room
computer.
in the safety of
That's
their
it.
house, and they're talking to
You think they're just
anybody
playing
and
with-
anywhere, right?
And they're typically on with their friends, and that's kind of how they make their, their
Plans.
deals, their little plans. And then they get on and they can order right through Xbox because it's a computer to Amazon to the
Amazon.
store, right? Amazon can get you anything.
Yes,
You know, as a
Amazon
matter of
can
fact,
get you anything.
John Venza was doing a presentation at my school, and he showed how easy it was to buy a pill press. Like he showed an ad for a pill press. So if a kid had $560, they can buy a pill press and start making pills. Like that's how ridiculously easy it is to do these things.
So we say it just parents have to have safeguards and they need to know that these things can happen.
Right.
You know, what you choose to do with the information is your choice,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
you should know that there is the possibility, like, do you check the bill that's attached to the Xbox? Do you know what the charges are? Because that all matters.
Yeah.
So I learned this through my son is 9, and all of a sudden he got PlayStation 4, and all of a sudden he's like, Dad, look at all these free games that came out. I'm like, free games? So I'm like, wow, I used to play that when I was a kid. I'm playing with him, and I'm like, dude, how did you get these for free? And they had my credit card information on, and it was a $20 charge. So I call, oh, well, you need to have your credit card on. I said, I don't want my credit card on here. My son just spent this. I don't want this 20. So you can keep a $5 minimum, and then anything is prior approval. So I learned through trial and, just from this happening to me, that you could just keep a $5 balance on there, and then anything more than $5, you need to re-enter your credit card and get permission. And so there are ways
So
to
that's
do
a
that.
great
Yep.
stop guard.
That's right.
That's a great stop guard.
But you actually have to call. They automatically, when you set up a credit card, they automatically do not put a limit on it. So you
Isn't
can
that
order
nice
whatever
of
you
them?
want.
Yeah, I know. Right.
That's how the 4-year-old ordered,
That's
$1,000 off Amazon
Right.
that time. Yeah, that's crazy.
Totally.
It's crazy. So much that you with technology, you have to be 16 steps ahead of them.
You do.
I mean, just simple safety settings on your computer, even for
Yeah.
what they can access.
On the TV too,
or the
on a smart TV.
YouTube.
Yeah.
These kids go on YouTube and they find out how to modify products, how to make products, how to do everything, and you have safety features on your computer. And if you don't know how to do it, then invest the money in going to someone who can teach you how to do it, because it's your job to try to make it a little bit more difficult in a world where we've made it very accessible. And it takes a lot more effort to put up the barriers, right? Because
Right.
you have to be a lot more savvy, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Correct. And I think the biggest nemesis is any child having a smartphone.
Right.
Just not necessary. They do not need access to the internet. They do not.
You're right.
They need you to be able to call them, and they should be able to text 5 people. That's just I would shut that world off, because
Well, you can just take
It's so easy
easy.
now.
I know.
And I was just, as a matter of fact, a friend of mine, the other guy who runs the Drug and Alcohol Task Force, Sean Boylan, right? His wife, he was just telling me his wife was having conversations. They're a bunch of 4th grade parents, and they made a pact that they wouldn't get their kids phones until they were at least in middle school, and they would only buy them flip phones. They would not buy them smartphones. So she felt like, if I get a pact from all these parents, then the
Great
kid-
idea.
So that way it removes the pressure from the kid saying, I'm the only one, I'm the only one. Nope, me and 6 of my friends, we all have the same type of phone.
it's a great idea.
Their
And
parents are literally 2-3 years ahead of time planning
Yes.
this. And that's kind of how you should spend your conversation. I said, well, that's an ingenious idea.
It is, but when you're standing next to somebody at the soccer field wherever you are, there's going to be other like-minded parents there. You're
right.
all going through the same experience. Kids are really not all that different. So you're all going through the same experiences.
Yeah.
If you don't like your kid hanging out behind 7-Eleven or,
Right.
you know, up at the shopping center or wherever, there are a lot of other parents that are also feeling the pressure to
Right.
say, yes, it's okay because everyone else is doing it. No, call them. You will find other parents.
That's right.
I mean, or just shut the data off on the phone. I mean, there are ways to buy up-to-date products and just not provide them with all the bells and whistles.
Well, then they go onto Wi-Fi and they do it on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so we're going to be right back after these messages, and we're going to continue the talk about prevention. You are the biggest stop guard in your child's life. You need to really take charge of it. We'll be right back.
You can take the data so that they can't do it on Wi-Fi either.
They said one hit wouldn't hurt. They said one hit wouldn't hurt.
They lied. Get your kids the truth about drugs. Drugfreeworld.org.
I could have been so many things. I had friends and family that loved me. I had talent and a drive to do well. I could have been happy and successful. I could have lived my life. Instead, I'm here. Heroin brought me here. One try was all it took. Now, all I have is this cold metal bed.
They said drugs would make you cool.
Go in my room. I just asked you. No, Mom, shut up, Mom. Tell me to shut up. Leave me alone. Get back here. Mijo.
Just say it to my face, dude. What? Just say it, dude. What? No, man. It's my face.
What's wrong with you?
Man, forget you guys.
Hey, wake up, sleepyhead. Pay attention in my class.
They said drugs would make you cool. They lied. Find out the truth about drugs. Drugfreeworld.org.
My parents never thought that their kid could have a heroin problem. They never checked my room for my stash, never questioned the kind of kids I was hanging out with. They never paid attention to the things they found in my laundry. They never bothered to check my text messages or what I looked at online. Never checked the car I drove around in. Never checked my book bag. And now my parents will never be able to forgive themselves.
Get help. Get involved before it's too late.
Welcome back to Resolutions for Recovery, and happy summer. It is a happy summer. It's the best, you know, summer should be stress-free, the happiest time of your childhood, really.
Yes.
Just to have the freedom and no schoolwork, no pressure, no anything. But we need to keep them healthy.
That's right.
And there's way too much going on that, you know, we worry about the predators in our neighborhood. Well, it's your kids' friends that are bringing substances is the biggest predator in their lives. You know, let's be truthful about that. In most neighborhoods, by the grace of God, you know, when kids are together, they're not going to be kidnapped and all of these other threats that we seem to worry so much about as parents. We need to recognize the biggest threat to them, which is all these drugs.
And I think last week you had Nora
Yes.
Elliott on, and I commented on your Facebook wall because what Nora said at like 8 minutes in the show was so powerful that I think it's worth saying again. And that's because, you know, we think about drugs and we think about drug dealers and drug addicts, right? And I work in a school, and 60 to 70% of the kids that I work with, they're not drug addicts. They haven't crossed over to that other side yet, but they're abusing drugs, and there can be fatal consequences for abusing drugs, and it could just be an experimentation. There's such powerful stuff out there. And so we have to kind of eliminate that whole idea of, oh, it's this friend because he's the bad kid.
Exactly.
Or it's that thing. No, it could be anybody. They could just get together and the kid could say, hey, let's just do this. And there could be such a negative consequence to that, and it could be such an innocent, like...
But you know, we're reading about all the fentanyl that's mixed in with everything now. So now it's marijuana with fentanyl.
That's
Well,
right.
that's a bad batch of marijuana. Stop deluding yourself to that. Marijuana in and of itself is still illegal, and your 12-year-old should not be partaking in it.
Right.
So the other day, which will be on next week's show, we interviewed some kids at Outreach, which is the adolescent treatment facility for 12-year-olds to 19-year-olds, and yes, that does exist.
Right.
So these kids were very upfront. They started at 11, 12, and 13, and imagine this, the first thing that they tried was marijuana.
Of course.
And it led to other things. Why did it lead to other things? Because that was fun to do. So other things must be equally as fun. So all of those things on a not developed brain, we're going down a bad path already. So listen to what's going on.
Right.
Don't be naive. If your kids are not smoking pot, then you don't have to worry about fentanyl, do you?
That's true.
So if you're going to worry about fentanyl being mixed in with all these other things, that doesn't make it a bad batch, because there is no good batch of drugs.
True. Very good point.
Just no good batch of anything.
And let's not forget about the alcohol sitting
Alcohol,
in
yeah.
your house.
Alcohol.
Sitting right in that cabinet that you have down there, that little mini bar that you have in your house, because that's, right, kids take what's most accessible.
Absolutely.
So, alcohol,
So, and they may fill up the vodka bottle with water.
There you go. And so, you know, we have kids that are using prescription pills in middle school, and you know, of course the parents saying, well, what's the dealer? Who are they getting that from? They're
Your
getting it from your
house.
medicine cabinet.
Yeah.
Or your mother's or their grandparents' medicine cabinet, or their friend's medicine cabinet.
Correct.
Because it's what's accessible.
Yes.
So they go in the medicine cabinet, they find a med, they go on their smartphone, type it in, and oh, I can take this way, and it's going to get me high.
I can chop it, I can snort it, I can,
That's right.
I
We're
can
out of
trade it,
admission.
I can sell it and get what I want. So, you know, they're smart. Let's just acknowledge that kids are they're a little too bright.
That's a 5-minute ordeal.
Yeah.
It's not a plan that's going to take hours. That'll take them 5 minutes to go in through your medicine cabinet, look at the bottle, and Google search
Which is it that that I know we have to buy behind the counter now,
You have Sudafed,
right?
Sudafed, Benadryl.
Right,
Benadryl.
and
DXM, so Robitussin DM.
diarrhea medicine. What are they making with diarrhea medicine
the
now,
Modi-Med-D,
Anthony?
well, it's
Yeah.
you have the meth, the crystal meth. So now they're mixing, you know, over the counter again. YouTube.
Over the counter.
YouTube it.
You go on YouTube. It takes 5 minutes. I learn most of my stuff through YouTube. As a professional in the field, I go to YouTube to find the information.
That's
the
crazy.
kid's finding. Yeah. It's quicker and easier.
Yeah, it's quicker and easier.
It's
Take me
quicker.
2 minutes to go on my YouTube.
So
app.
very interesting. The children the other day, or the young adults, also said, ask them a question about social media. Yes, social media played a huge part in how they found kids that were dealing, where to get what they needed, how to do things, and, you know, hook up with a whole nother set of friends, which escalated their drug use over to abuse very quickly.
So we see it more now, or maybe I'm just more sensitive to it because my daughter's like at that age, but they use Snapchat
Yes.
And what happens is they send pictures of what they're doing. So now it's not just about your daughter not being with that group, it's that she may see that they're doing things. It may spike their curiosity and make them think about engaging in doing things that they wouldn't necessarily do because they're being openly exposed to it, even if they're not there. So we used to think as parents that if we knew families, knew where they were, knew what was going on, that at least we would have like this safety net, which it still works sometimes, but they still are getting, their curiosity is still being tickled by everything that they're visually exposed to.
Right.
So let's go back to, if they had a flip phone, they wouldn't have access to Snapchat, right?
It's true.
So we need to cut them, you know, it's a great thing to be able to have them use. Most people don't have a house phone anymore. You know what?
That's right.
Part of the Optimum package, you can have a hardline number. So, you know,
use it.
Use it.
You can get one for $30 a year, one of those rabbits.
Absolutely.
Rabbit chat,
you know,
yeah.
but again,
It's not
social
that
media, Snapchat, Instagram, all of those things, you know, showing people doing behaviors that you may not want your child to partake in, but it's pretty hysterical when you see your friend falling down. Oh, I'd love to get like that.
Right, and the beauty of Snapchat is it disappears.
It disappears.
So it really gives them this feeling like, well, no one's going to see it. So
Right.
they're going to see it for 10 seconds and it's gone into cyberspace.
So colleges do check Facebook pages. They do check Instagram. They've become very savvy to that. So in response to that, now we have Snapchat. So it disappears. So there's always one step ahead. It's not cute technology that makes you look like a bunny rabbit.
Yes.
You know, but that's what they would lead parents to believe.
That's right.
So question, find out, do your own research.
That's right.
Because they're always 14 steps ahead of us.
Right. There's a lot. And I mean, so we're talking about prescription pills, accessibility.
Lock your booze up, though. Let's be
Lock your
honest.
booze
That's
up.
why I said it. You can't
Lock
forget
your
that.
booze up.
You can't forget that. It's right there.
Yeah, because you know what? Your child may not, but why put them under the pressure of having
Someone come over.
Right. And if they're not comfortable to be the leader and to say no, we need to bulletproof them.
Of course, 100%. I agree. But I was going to say, down in Northport, we have a reclamation box, so you could drop off your unused meds in summertime.
And vitamins.
And vitamins. And the summertime is a good time to clean. I mean, it's always a good time, but summer especially is really important.
Or get a med box. They sell
Get a
them,
med
what are they,
box.
$30?
They are, but you want to know.
Lock up your medicine.
I saw this really useful tool that Oasis put out, and it actually looks like a little card. And if you do need to take meds, you can fill it out so that you can keep count. Like if you're not someone, so that you know what you have and when you have it. And you don't need to let anybody else know in your house that you do that. And that's another way of checks and balancing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
A little more of a costly thing. They also have caps that keep count of how many times you opened your bottle to pour it. It's not to prevent, really, it's really for someone to remember how much meds they're taking, right? Because there's also this issue of elderly misprescribing or misusing their medications that we have to worry about.
Correct.
But the idea that there are checks and balances, there are things you can do to monitor what you're doing at home, locking it up, dumping unused, unwanted meds without, don't put them down the toilet. Let's help save our environment. You know, there's drug reclamation boxes at every police.
We don't need any of that in the groundwater or wherever else, or somebody rummaging through
the garbage.
To be quite honest, you know, we have so much crime going on Long Island, and really all over the country. But you know, these $200, $300, $400 robberies, crashing into houses, burglaries. So you lock your jewelry up, lock your meds up, lock your alcohol up. There's no reason to have it all out, especially if you just the best. You know, that was such a great analogy with little ones around. You know, you don't let them into the cleanser where you keep all your cleaning supplies.
Right.
Why?
You know,
It's poison.
It's poison. So alcohol is poison.
That's right.
For people who should not be drinking it.
That's right. Particularly for underage, when that brain is underdeveloped.
Yeah.
It's absolutely poison for their brain.
How does it turn on? How does it ignite? Give us that just little piece again. How can it ignite the disease of addiction?
So, you know, it's that, you know, from a behavioral standpoint, you get that feeling. It feels good.
Right.
It feels really good, right? And that's typical of any drugs. And for a drug of choice, right, it feels good for that one particular person, whereas somebody might do cocaine and they might not feel one way, but an opiate then opens it up. From a physiological standpoint, it affects the same center in the brain, as all drugs affect the same center. When I say drugs, I include alcohol in that, right? And the dopamine is the hormone in the brain, so it rushes way more dopamine into the brain that your brain can't do on its own.
So, like winning the state championship,
your dopamine
10 times over.
Might go up 100 points, but smoking a joint will go up 1,000. I mean,
Yeah.
they're really saying 10, 20, 1,000 times more than any other rush that you can have, right? So that pleasure center of the brain is being affected, and then eventually that switch gets turned on. Not for everybody, and we don't know who.
Right.
And it might not get turned on for you day one. It might take 5 years. It might take 10 years. It might take one time.
It might take one time.
So there's just no, you know, they always say, like, you know, what's the line of addiction? It's not a straight line like this. It's like this.
Yeah.
We don't know what your line is. We don't know who you are, how it fits, whether it's genetic, predisposition is a piece of it, but you could have addiction. You can not have addiction to either side of your family and still become addicted.
Absolutely. One young woman the other day, 18 years old, again, in treatment now, 13 years old, first hit of a joint. By 14, she was injecting heroin.
Wow.
Her progression was
Fast.
super fast.
Many teenagers.
She didn't even know how it happened.
Many teens I see, you know, we call them garbage heads. They try this, they try that, what's accessible, and then they kind of settle in. And a lot of teens, they settle in like right after high school. But the progression started in
high school. Right.
And we know it then.
Right.
You know, that it's just that it takes them a little time to find what they were looking for.
Because really, those 18 to 25-year-olds, we're losing so many in our communities.
Sadly, that population is being. We just went to
We were just at a wake.
We were just at a wake of a really, really good friend of ours, a very active member of the Drug and Alcohol Task Force, and you know, she is so open about.
I don't think she would mind. She's been on the show. She was
right.
She was on Long Island in Crisis. Tammy Walsh,
That's right.
and a math teacher who so involved in teaching and talking about and always working it in on a daily basis. And
she's
her
an innovator.
She's a trailblazer.
She's
really
my partner in this whole process at the school, and you know, here I am sitting at the wake with her, and I'm hugging her, and I'm talking to her, and she's like, "We got to do more."
Yeah.
She's just an awesome person, but you know,
but her son started the progression,
That's
and
right.
you know what? And unfortunately, right. And how old was he?
He was 24.
Right. So
it was 2 days before his 25th birthday.
So figure, let's say 13 to 25, those 12 years where he just should have been becoming an adult were interrupted. And that happens way too often. So I'm so sick and tired of hearing, well, not in my family.
Right.
Baloney. And I have a much better, stronger word for that, but I'm not using it. Isn't that good of me?
Right.
Because, you know, I got to speak in my own hometown with Kim Laube maybe 3 weeks ago. And I got to tell my community, where I was the religion teacher, the coach. I was so involved in my community. And Thomas was, everybody wanted Thomas at their home. Well-behaved, all of those things. And then you turned him into the scourge of the community because he had a problem that you didn't understand. And then it became all about, well, you know, they did get divorced. Oh, well, they did. No, it was nothing like that. He was exposed, he was in pain, and he was exposed to something that ignited a disease in his brain, and you pushed him out of your community.
These
when
are
we
all
should
good
have
kids.
wrapped our arms around him, and that's what we need to go back to
That's right.
doing.
These are all
They're
really
all
good kids.
They're all good
I
kids.
love every kid I talk to.
They're all good
I
kids.
love. They're awesome. They're awesome
They're
kids.
all good kids who
Tremendous
make a
potential.
bad choice.
And then once that thing gets ignited and once that curiosity and it gets turned on, it's very hard to shut off.
Yes.
It takes a lot of work through, you know, the treatment system and recovery and just sustained recovery and the recovery supports and reducing that stigma so it's okay for them to talk about it and work through it.
And making the family well.
Right.
There's
And
just so
working with
many
the family,
components.
right.
So many components.
Right. That's why we're so lacking in those systems.
Yes. We're so unwilling to even discuss those systems.
Right.
Those systems. You know, so you brought up a great point before when teachers say if we talk about it, you're making them curious. They're already so many steps ahead of you. And I know it's hard to believe when we look at little kids. But they know already.
But that's like saying, I'm not going to talk to my kid about sex.
Right.
Right? And they're going to eventually be exposed to it. So do you want them to have the proper tools to deal with it, or do you want them to just go for a free-for-all and figure it out?
Right.
I mean, that's the...
Or do you want them to learn it on the street?
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's part of an educational process. We need to teach our kids healthy decision and what that looks like. We talk to them all the time about what's good for their cardiovascular health, like what's good for, the mind is a muscle, right? So we really need to be more comfortable about addressing it like that. It's a public health issue.
Yes.
And it's a public health topic. And
right now it's a public health crisis.
It is absolutely a crisis.
That's right.
But we need to make it a part of our everyday conversation. It's not something that we should just talk about when the situation arises. And that's the part that we need to bridge, because we still find that there's so much stigma attached to...
Oh, the stigma is still,
It's horrible.
It is horrible.
And it's actually sad, because we're failing overall because of that. Yes. And we need to change the mindset around it. We need to make it more comfortable to talk about it, more comfortable to deal with it. We need to have people who are suffering not feel that they need to live in shame or that there's something wrong with them. It's a disease. It's a very complex disease, and we need to deal with it like that. Yes. And embrace them where they're at, give them the resources and the help that they need. And, it takes a community.
It does take community, all aspects of it. Religious, school, Chamber of Commerce. Got to come together.
I was actually shocked. I was talking with my daughter, and I said, do you do, drug education in school? Because I don't know if they do. It's a Catholic school. It's not a public school system, and I don't know what they do for prevention. And she actually told me that they talk about it in relative to subjects. So
that's awesome.
It was awesome. Her teacher was talking about the biology of the body, spoke about alcoholism, even broke down the stats to, like, if you come from a family, if it's on the father's side and the mother's side. And I said, wow. I said, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
And we need to...
Every teacher should be doing that.
Yes. Right. And every teacher should be comfortable doing that, because...
Absolutely.
That's not saying it's okay or it's not. It's just like, these are facts.
It's fact.
Or if every teacher is not comfortable doing it, every school district should have a plan on how to do it. So I would just say, just from a top-down approach, every school should really say, this is our district's plan for addressing this, and this is how we're going to
And it should never be a one-shot deal.
No.
One-shot deals are a waste of time.
But we have that, check it.
That's check the box.
Right.
That's it. I did my drug speech for this year. I did my anti-bullying for this year. You see that happening all too many times.
Yeah, and it's not effective.
No.
We know that. It's not effective. It's not effective to, pay Chris Herron $10,000 to come in, because with $10,000, your school district can do an awful lot.
You have a whole program.
And for parents that are watching this and you don't have an evidence-based prevention program in your school, go to the next board meeting. Get your neighbors together, get your friends together, and demand that they put one in.
Absolutely.
And when you look at those evidence-based programs, we keep talking about education, but we're also talking about building skills in our kids, refusal strategy skills, how to deal with situations. So some of the stuff we spoke about earlier. In those programs, a lot of times, it's not only teaching them, this is not good for your brain. It's, okay, so when you're in a situation, what do you do, and how do you handle it, and
but and it also teaches what is good for your brain.
That's right.
Right? So elementary school, I've heard from parents, too good for drugs. I don't want my first grader talking about drugs. You're not talking about drugs. So we either rename that program or get a program that is comfortable for parents to have that name
There's
because it's
about
those
150
coping
evidence-based
skills,
programs.
coping skills, communication skills. You want your kids to know how to talk to you, then you need to speak to them.
Yes.
But you also need to shut up
And listen.
to them.
That's huge.
And you may not like what they have to say, but they need to say it.
Yep.
And you know, I always like to bring this up too, because I think as parents we're all guilty of it. Don't minimize their problems, because when you're 10, 11, 12, it may seem ridiculous to you as an adult, but it's not ridiculous to them. And they need to be validated, they need to be heard, and they need help with a solution. Help with the solution, not the solution.
Right.
You are not the solution. We need to teach them all those skills.
Well, it's the process, right?
Yeah.
And that's how they learn the map to, right? Little kids have a little problem, they learn to work through it, so then now they have that map how to work through problems.
Yes.
That's problem solving and decision making, and these are all the core of prevention programming.
Yes.
Goal setting, how to reach a goal, what are the steps it takes to reach a goal, healthy communication, and these are things that I think we want all of our kids to have.
So, you know, it's so funny. So I don't think marijuana should be called marijuana anymore, because it's not innocuous as so many adults feel that it is. Prevention is so much more than prevention.
Right.
So should it be called well-being skills? Should it be called something else in school?
Right.
Because I think that parents would be very much on board with a wellness curriculum.
Well, they're like life skills, right?
Life skills.
I mean, anything,
They are
and
life
they are
skills.
life skills. The Too Good for Drugs curriculum, those refusal strategies can be applied to any aspect of your life. So
that could be for a mom who's too busy to learn how to say no.
Right.
And feel okay with it. Right?
Absolutely. You can take them and use them universally no matter where you are, whether it's bullying, you're having a hard time with a friend group, you're having even a subject.
How about if you're having a hard time with a teacher?
That too.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? What's the difference?
There is no difference. So when we talk about prevention, we should just start calling it prevention life skills, or just life skills, because that's what we need to empower our kids with.
Absolutely. And there's a lack of that today.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's everything is immediate. I think that parents are they're so ready for their kids at 10 years old to be grown up and be going to college. You know, so if you don't do this, then this isn't going to happen.
You have middle school kids talking about college right now.
Let's just practice some mindfulness and being present in the moment, because you can't worry about yesterday.
Nope.
And let's not worry about tomorrow, because it's not here yet. We've missed the opportunity.
That's right.
You know, I've been teaching Vincent, my grandson, don't get attached to everything. Just let it unfold. Whatever life's going to bring us, life's going to bring us.
He's so cute.
You know, but we had this conversation today, and then I said, you know, sometimes, so we're spiritual, and I just told him, you know, sometimes God makes decisions for us too. And we may feel really bad about the decision that's made for us, but we have to believe that it was the best decision for us. You know, and he tied that into my son. Is that why, Uncle Tom? And I said, you know, so it's a fine line that I'm walking there, because he's at a very
curious age.
So, you know, we work through that. But yes, I need to show him the other side of that. You know, the other side of when something bad happens in your life, but what good came out of it. Because there was always something good that's going to come out of it.
There's always a silver lining.
Right. So we need to teach our kids that. It's not the end of the world. Let's wait. It's going to be like a new surprise tomorrow, what unfolds for you. Something better on the horizon.
But I also think it's important, you know, a lot of the things that happen today is that kids, it's okay to not feel okay too.
So that's perfectly fine. You know
I mean,
you're allowed not to be happy, right?
You know, I tried really hard, and maybe I failed miserably, you know, so teach them how to break it down and find a different way, or maybe that's it. Maybe this is the way that it was supposed to be. Maybe I'm not great at everything, and I'm okay with that.
Well, that's resiliency, though.
That's resiliency.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big piece of what we're missing in a lot of our kids is resiliency. we always talk about how do you teach resiliency? How do you cultivate resiliency? And that's one of the easiest ways. Allow them to struggle a bit. Allow them to kind of.
If you never fail, you don't know what resiliency is.
We don't have to save them. We don't have to give them everything. We don't have to kind of, But as parents, you have to let go a little bit of that and watch them struggle a bit and let them kind of figure it out and maybe not succeed. And that's okay. And sit with that bad emotion. That's half the reason why half the people are getting high right now, because they don't know how to deal with the emotions.
The bad emotion.
Emotional management, right?
Yeah.
That's a
but
big piece of this.
when my younger son wrestled, you certainly never talked, especially in high school. If he did lose, you didn't discuss it then.
Right.
But I always used to say, think back, what would you have changed if you could? And sometimes he knew exactly what he did wrong and so that was a lesson.
Right.
Don't get caught dropping your hip, whatever the move was, or there's nothing I would change. Okay. So for those 9 minutes, your opponent was better than you for those 9 minutes.
Right.
That not for all those 9 minutes. Right?
Exactly.
Thank you guys so much again. I think, we're going to put this up on all the websites. Parents, just take, you can view these anytime you want. Take some strategies that work for you, but don't take the approach of this is not going to happen in my family. It's happening in everybody's family. And if you can be a resource for another family, then be the resource for another family. If you're, by the grace of God, don't have it in yours. Have a great weekend. Enjoy this first weekend of summer, and I will see you next week.